rather run like Herb. Yeah. Or Teddy.
That's for the short delay, but we had to button up some things in the back. So let's see, we have a Planning and Public Works Committee meeting. Mr. Darby is the chair. He is out today, a little under the weather, so all members of council participates on this committee. The first item of business, approval of minutes.
So moved,
November
both
3rd. What is
items.
the motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, deletions, or addition? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, ayes have it. Item 2A is Mills Crossing Estate. What is the pleasure? Y'all want to see the presentation?
I'll move for approval. This is in your district, Mr. Chairman, I think, is it? I'll move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Swears?
The staff recommendation is approval, and the planning commission recommendation is also unanimous approval.
There was one dissenter, and it was approved with some conditions, but they were mostly clerical conditions.
The motion is with the conditions.
As
Yeah.
presented from committee.
The one that opposed, any idea what that was about?
It was an issue with using planned developments to increase density, and doing that piecemeal across the county.
Okay, anybody else? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. We are going to move right into our Finance Committee agenda where all members of council participate. But before I do, let me recognize the newly elected council member from District 8, Joe Boykin. He is in here tonight, so Joe, welcome aboard. And you don't have to sit in the back, come on up front. That's where the heat's at, not in the back. All right, so we glad to have you. And look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, if you want to say a couple of words, and then we'll move on.
Thank you for the warm welcome, and I'm just looking forward to getting here and working together.
Be careful what you ask for. Thank you, sir. All right, item number 1 is approval of minutes of November.
Second.
All right, move in second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, ayes have it. 2A through I is consent agenda. Any?
Approval.
Moved by Reverend Milton, second by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion?
Chairman, if you wouldn't
Dr.
mind,
Moody.
could we take 2G separately?
All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. 2G is financial incentives for ILA 1422. What is the pleasure?
Move to approve. Second.
Who did second by Mr. Wehrman? Moved by Reverend Middleton. Mr. Moody, question?
That's more a comment that I've got about this is that I understand the need and purpose. I've talked to Mr. Dykes, and the training I think is valuable training. But my problem is with the ILA's activities at the Leatherman Center. The Leatherman Port has got that port operating at 20% capacity. So incentivizing that organization that's got that current port locked down is, to me, just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I can't support that.
All right, Mr. Moody, maybe let me explain that to you. You know, these are two different groups, right? One of them is on the labor side, and the other one is on the training side. So what you're talking about with Leatherman, that's the dock workers. These folks here are not dock workers. They do the refrigeration work, brake work on the trailers and repair them. So I don't want you to get confused and, and maybe, get a.
Get that clarification.
Yes, sir. All right. Anybody else? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Raise your hand for the nay. 4 nays. So that's 1. So you got 4 nays and 4 yeas. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, since Mr. Darby's not here, this will go to our next regularly scheduled county council meeting without a recommendation. Okay, it won't be on tonight.
Right.
It'll be on the next one. So
December 6th.
it's December 6th. So this will go to December 6th, okay, without a recommendation. All right. I'm going to skip down to item number 5 because Reverend Milton has to leave at 5:30. So out of respect for him, he wants to participate. So item 5A is economic development housing presentation. 5B is 995 Morrison Drive master plan update. And 5C is reconvene the housing steering committee. Let's take that first, reconvene the housing steering committee. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Let's go to 5B since Reverend Milton got to go. I think that's what you're interested in, right, Rev?
I'm interested in all of it, but surely, yes.
So 5B, Morrison Drive Master Plan update. Who's giving that update?
I believe the consultants should be on standby.
Yes, sir. So Mr. Davis and I have worked with the city's housing authority, and basically what we've been able to determine was that that was not enough time provided in order to bring back an actual presentation or proposal. So they are prepared to present kind of their ideas and thoughts with regards to what a partnership might look like for council's consideration.
Who's prepared to do that?
It's a consultant for the housing authority.
All right, I'm gonna give you 7 minutes, no more than 10 minutes to do that. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right, so go right ahead.
My name is Art Milligan. I'm the CEO and president of the Charleston Housing Authority. I have a consultant here who's worked with us, and she'd like to give a quick presentation of our thoughts on how to go forward. Connie, if you would.
Good evening, members of the council. I'm here representing the Housing Authority regarding the matter of 995 Morrison Drive. And we do have some massing models. The only thing that I would really like to say about the graphics that you see on the screen is that we were trying to understand what we could get on the site. We know that what's possible is the potential to build 3 buildings with 312 units, a 4th building with 264, so about 1,200 units on site. This is a baby step. Development is very iterative, and there's a long process involved in this, but we just wanted to get an idea of what could be built on the site. What we are certain of is that this site has tremendous intrinsic value to CHA and the community if CHA is able to use it in a strategic planning effort that takes a portfolio approach to the redevelopment of all the CHA public housing sites located on the peninsula. So if 995 was available and can be the basis for a mixed-use, mixed-income, public-private partnership, the shared vision for the site could be formed through a process of discovery and partnership, would serve as relocation housing so that all other CHA housing on the peninsula could be cleared and redeveloped into its highest and best use. The conceptual vision should be compelling and flexible, consider the market, a parking study, due diligence, and other key pre-development activities. And once it's done, CHA can use it to seek to engage a master developer through a formal request for qualifications process. Private developer would take the lead on the market rate components of the project, and then CHA would act as the affordable housing component developer and earn developer fees and cash flow from the operations of both the market rate and affordable units. The private developer partner would pay all pre-development costs and provide all investor and lender guarantees, shielding CHA from the liability that accompanies development. And this is pretty typical and best practices. The land would be conveyed by the county to CHA, and CHA would then lease the land to a to-be formed owner entity of which CHA would be the controlling member. The ground lease eliminates the acquisition costs, giving the project the best opportunity to underwrite. So even though the county wouldn't be selling the land for its cash value, the intrinsic value to the county and CHA is really tremendous. Studies have shown that building 100 units of affordable housing generates $11.7 million in local income, $2.2 million in taxes and other revenue, and 161 jobs. So in the simple math, this makes 995 Morrison look like 140 million in local income, 26 million in tax and other revenue, and 1,932 local jobs in the first year alone. And we're not asking for you to accept the simple math. We're just asking for the time to put together the real numbers, because we had basically days to put together this very simple math. We think it's important and worth a study to see what the value of this property could be to CHA if they were able to redevelop their portfolio of housing on the peninsula. The acre 995 Morrison site is a development opportunity. It's poised to play a catalytic role in accelerating the redevelopment of all the public housing located on the peninsula. This is an area of opportunity, and increasing access to affordable housing in an area of opportunity helps families climb the economic ladder, leading to greater community development and bolstering economic productivity and job creation. And I appreciate your time.
Okay, any questions before she goes? Any questions? Mr. Wehrman?
We had obviously a presentation from our folks who took plenty of time to study this, and there was this idea of there's these various different buckets. One that I think a lot of folks were focusing on was this idea of 3A, where we sort of see there's 4 quadrants. Basically, I think one quadrant would be the affordable housing. There would be probably market units on the other 3. Is that still what we're talking about here? I'm just not clear on
it. Is so you would develop it in a mixed income manner. So yes, you are talking about housing that would be available for market rate, workforce, all the way down to affordable families that earn less than 30% of the area median income. And that mix of units would be determined through the underwriting and the pro forma. But yes, we do intend for it to be mixed income across the site.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
You good, Miss? All right, Ms. Honeycutt?
I don't understand what the benefit, I'm not sure I understand the benefit to the county. We just convey title for nothing to the CHA and some partner they come up with and get nothing in return. Y'all take care of it?
Well, I think that the intrinsic value, as the slide showed, you're going to be getting tax revenue from this site once it's developed, and also you're going to be getting the value of the jobs created and the value of redeveloping all the other public housing sites and increasing the density on those sites, again, in a mixed income manner, so that all of the public housing on the peninsula blends more into the fabric of the peninsula and doesn't look like public housing.
But don't we get all of that if we keep it and proceed with the 3A option with our own partners? And we keep the value of our land?
Yes.
Well, I think that short term you'll get the value of your land. I think that what we are looking at here in a partnership with the county and the housing authority is best practices that the value goes on for years and years. The housing authority can use the value of this redevelopment to redevelop all their stock and to even assist with the operations of their own full agency. It's the housing authority is the county's housing authority.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Mr. Sass?
Yes, sir. I have a couple of questions. So if I understand, what we're talking about is that the whole property would be part of this process, not just a quarter of it? Or would y'all in effect be developing the entire property, the whole 1,200 units or whatever it might be?
In the case that we looked at, we were developing the entire property, and we were developing it for the purpose of gaining critical mass to buttress the lower income units that were going in there. This mainstreams those public housing families into the community, and honestly insulates them from, when people drive by and see where they live, they're sort of seen as living in the projects, and by mainstreaming them into these mixed income communities, they lose that stigma.
So this would be more public housing instead of affordable housing or workforce housing, or?
It would be the full spectrum. So you would be rebuilding public housing that you took off of other land parcels on the peninsula, and you would be rebuilding it in this area along with workforce housing and market rate housing. And I can tell you, I've done this. I've done it for 22 years, and the economic benefit to the families is just tremendous if this is done well. They get role models, they get mentors. It's just a tremendous benefit to them to be in a community that is mainstreamed like this.
I mean, I thought that this was a situation where, I thought when we talked about this, the housing authority was going to look at 1 acre, or 2 acres or something like that, and the rest of it was going to be, we would be able to sell it or do something else with it, probably sell it to a developer that would do market rent properties there. And I don't know, I'm real concerned. I think this is sort of a little bit different animal than what I thought we were talking about 2 weeks ago. But you confirmed that y'all would take the entire site, both sides of Cool Blow Street, and y'all are looking at the whole thing.
We would like the entire site. We think that when you look at this from a master planning standpoint and look at the Housing Authority's entire portfolio, this could be tremendous to the county and to the Housing Authority if the Housing Authority was able to master plan its portfolio. If it ends up being just 1/4 of it, that would also be beneficial to the Housing Authority. But I think that what we were looking at was, again, mainstreaming some of the public housing and putting them into this community so that they would be indistinguishable as public housing because they would be mainstreamed into this mixed income community.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Werman.
Okay, I just want to kind of clarify here, and I think I'm starting to understand it a little bit better here. So obviously there would be market units. Someone's going to be getting the value from those market units. It would instead just be the housing authority would be getting that value in terms of as far as like a cash payment from whatever private developer. I guess y'all are saying that the value to the county is really just sort of the secondary value of y'all using that cash payment to sort of drive the housing authority's, operations and continued sort of provision of housing. Is that sort of correct?
That's pretty much best practices with HUD pulling back more and more from housing authorities. Localities are finding a way to work with housing authorities to make their operations work so that they can continue to take care of their own operations versus the locality having to take care of their operations with HUD pulling back more and more.
Gotcha. Okay. And so, listen, I'll tell you, I'm this idea of having, I'm hearing that the units would be sort of mixed in together. That was something I was interested in when we started this process. Maybe I don't totally understand what the ask is today. If y'all are asking to kind of develop this value proposition, I guess I don't know what the ask is, but yeah, I mean, I'm interested in that. I will tell you that, yes, this is a shift, I think, from what we heard. And I think that there's certainly going to be some resistance from a few members as far as not getting that cash payment for that market value. So I don't know I don't know what's on the table right now is basically what I'm saying. So.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Certainly listening to the consultant from the Housing Authority, this sounds to me like 3A, and it solves the gap that our consultants expressed to us based on incentives and or other sort of grants from the government that we potentially could have received. Well, through this particular model, they have already subsumed whatever that gap, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just listening to you very attentively. You have already subsumed by mainstreaming the affordable housing piece into the mixed use master plan scheme or schematic so that there is no gap. There is no loss as it relates to, now certainly they're still doing the numbers and crunching those numbers, but we would then have to look for grants, LIHTC sort of products. We would have to look for, if we did it under 3A, as was presented to us a few weeks ago, there was a net loss. They are now supposing, and they still have to do the numbers, but they are supposing this project, although we are not getting any direct dollars as it relates to the $25 million in one scenario from our consultants, $35 million if you sell it all, whatever the case is, at least from this proposition, there is the profit margin of just the benefit that comes back to our overall county and our community through taxes, through jobs, through the rent that these individuals would pay. And so, again, the problem that exists in our conceptual plan that was presented left on the table, where would we get the rest of this money? They are filling that gap and still need a little bit more time to try to figure out specifically what those numbers would be. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's absolutely correct. And again, I will say that it's best practices. I've done it in at least 2 different localities, and it's being done in other localities. Localities have to do this to solve their affordable housing crisis. We've got to build more units. I saw your housing plan. You have a shortage of units that you're looking to solve for. And, by redeveloping this site and all the other resulting housing authority sites, when they redevelop their public housing, clear those sites and redevelop those, you can put also more housing on those sites. And again, continue to solve for your affordable housing problem. The dollars are exponentially more than what you would get by just selling the land outright. And you're spot on, Councilman.
Okay, Grandmother,
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Honeycutt?
Reverend Middleton, you always speak so passionately that I almost start to think that what you're saying is what I heard the first time, but that is not at all what I heard out of 3A. Out of 3A, what I heard is exactly what's being presented here, except not involving the city's housing authority. We could do the same exact thing, generate the $25 million of income. A developer comes in and partners with us on a 99-year lease where the county actually keeps the title to the property rather than just giving it away to the city of Charleston. And they develop the same exact thing you're talking about. I think some of the flags that were raised is that we've never done that before and we don't want to be in the business of affordable housing. But that just means we have to find the right partner. I still find tremendous concern in why the county would just give this parcel to the city. I get the benefit that can be derived from it, but we can derive that same benefit from accomplishing the plan that's already been presented to us with a partner who doesn't want to just take the land and title from us.
Anybody else? Ms. Johnson?
First, I want to say thank you to the city for even considering to do a project like this, because we've been trying to figure out ourselves how to do it, and we're not even in the housing business. We are looking for a way how to provide more affordable housing. This is a way how to do it. We don't have to worry a whole lot about permitting if we went through the city, since this is in the city's jurisdiction. And the concept of blending people together is excellent to me. We need to be able to have opportunities for people to get out of needing affordable housing, to me. And if they're going to be in a mixed-use project such as what you've presented here, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to uplift our people out of the poverty area or out of the condition of we can't afford housing. And I'm hearing some mixed messages here from some of the colleagues, because I thought that's what we would be aiming to do, is not only provide the housing, but to lift people up so that they can afford to go and buy whatever they want to buy. And we're not just giving the land away, to me, Ms. Honeycutt. We're leasing it.
That's not the proposal.
Did I not hear leasing?
I heard lease.
Ma'am?
It is a land lease.
I heard lease.
Don't take title.
No,
Your land lease.
I heard lease.
Okay,
In the
thank
very
you. That-
beginning, lease.
It's lease.
The CHA took title and they were the primary partner on, that's the notes I took down. I misunderstood that.
Lease.
It's a land lease.
That's the first thing she said, lease. Very first thing.
We're getting what we want. And And we have some people who are experts at what they do. I thought I heard that we didn't want to get into the housing business in Charleston County. So if we don't want to get into the business ourselves, and we are new at it, young at it, and we have the opportunity for our city to take advantage of this, why not? Well, I don't understand why we're fighting against that. Thank you.
Can she just answer that question? I'd like to hear from her.
All right, Ms. Honeycutt, I would like to hear from you.
Who takes title? Where does the actual title go?
The title remains with the county, but what we need the title to do is to secure.
Financing.
We don't want anything to be subordinated to the title. So in other words, we want the title to be on the land and not to be subordinated to the debt or to the equity, so that if we ever have a problem with debt or equity, we have the big stick, if you will, of the value of the land. So that the land can remain with the county, and the county can lease it. Yes, it's a ground lease, but it is solely a ground lease. It is not a sale of the land.
Or any type of conveyance?
No.
Okay.
The county can retain the land. That is absolutely appropriate.
Okay. I misunderstood you earlier. Thank you for that clarification.
And certainly,
Sure.
Since my name was directly called, because I follow this very, very closely, could it not also be incremental, ma'am? And we don't have to give away all of our value
Correct.
at one time, and we can still get some income off of this?
Have the taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have the taxes. Okay.
So this would be 2 acres at a time, right?
I would expect that it would be. It depends on the financing and the funding and the availability of funding. What we have, but I would expect that it would be phased because it's such a large project. Yes.
So what if y'all
And
start?
again, if you're master planning the CHA properties along with this development effort, then they would need to phase their efforts as well.
So what if we start the first 2 with y'all and partner up, and then future council decides to sell the other 4 acres? Would y'all still be able to make those 2 acres work, but not just in the numbers? Because, past council can't bind future council.
I think that in order to put an RFQ on the street and attract the kind of developer partner that you want to attract for this parcel of land, I think that we would need to be able to offer all of the land in an RFQ. So I'm not sure. I'm not an attorney. We would need the legalese to take care of that, the legal eagles. But I think that in order to put a RFQ on the street that is highly desirable, we would need to be able to offer the 6 acres.
Okay.
However we do that.
All right. Anybody else? What are we, Mr. Sass?
This is a very preliminary draft would be a good way to put it. I still don't like it. I think it's getting away from the angle we were working on with the 3B. I don't know, can you hear me? 3A. I think that is. I think we're getting in territory that we don't have a lot of expertise in, and I'm real concerned about where that ends up. I can't support this. Thank you.
Okay.
Have the expertise? And is this not their territory?
I would assume, but let me ask this question, Mr. Davis. Has our consultant, who we were working with, looked at what they're presenting here today?
No, sir, we were waiting on some direction so we could put the 2 together and start working through details. But we have not engaged them directly as a staff.
So how long would it take you to go back to them and let them look at this and then tell us what they think?
You asking me or the?
You,
I would imagine
from our paid consultant.
our paid consultant.
Let them run this by them and then let them look at it and see, maybe give us some type of recommendation and saying whether this is, doable or non-doable.
I would say roughly a month. I can get you a better estimate. I can get a better estimate to your office in a day or two. But off the top of my head, I'd have to say roughly a month.
I would agree with a month. I
So,
would agree with that.
well, yeah, but why don't we do this? Why don't we move this to December 1st meeting? And then I'd give y'all time to go back and work with the consultants and then come back with, see what the consultants recommend. And I think we can make an informed decision because this is the first time we are hearing this tonight. And I want to make sure we get this right because, there's a lot at stake here. And don't want to make a decision based on we hear something tonight and it's passionate. But then when we get down the road, there's a roadblock somewhere. So that's what we pay the consultants to do. And I would feel much comfortable if they come back and say, well, we changed on 3A, let's do this. Okay? So let's just move this, if everybody is agreeable to the December 1st meeting, where we can get some information from the consultant. And maybe the consultant can come here this time. I don't like all this Zoom stuff, so, we tell them let's fly down or drive down so we can see face to face. All right, sir. Okay, that's good with everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do that. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome, ma'am. Thank you. All right, 5A, Economic Development Housing. Is that the presentation that y'all were gonna make? No. I would imagine, no. Oh, Mr. Dykes is supposed to bring out something Ms. Honeycutt had asked for months ago. And how long was it, Jenny? Ms. Honeycutt, I mean. It's been a while. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can make this happen, so incentive-wise to help with affordable housing. And Mr. Dykes, I will tell you, I got 7 to 10 minutes at the most, no longer, because we got to get things moving because we got some other stuff on the agenda.
Yes, sir. I won't disappoint you on that. And
Yes, sir.
I do not have any slides tonight, so I'll just talk off my notes here.
Yes, sir.
The assignment that you gave me, and again, that's been almost a year ago, frankly, was to explore whether the financial incentives typically used in economic development could be used in affordable housing. And so in order to tackle that, I've had conversations with our attorneys, Sam Howell and Robert Nettles at Howell, Linkus, and Nettles. I've also talked to economic developers in 3 counties across the state, and I've reviewed incentive policy and incentive agreement documents from those counties. And what I have found is that these tools can in fact be used that way, and they have been used that way. There's several precedents around the state. They're typically the precedents thus far have been in Richland County, Spartanburg County, and Greenville County. And so I've had extensive conversations with my economic development counterparts in those 3 places and kind of picked their brains about how they've gone about it. The tools we're talking about are fee in lieu of taxes, multi-county industrial park, and special source revenue credit. And collectively, those 3 things can be used together to bring overall property tax relief, property tax predictability over a 20-year period, and they can also be used to bridge a financial delta or a gap, a shortfall, if you will, in a pro forma. And that's the lessons learned from those counterparts of mine in the other counties. So where I've left this, I've been in touch with Sam Howell, and I've asked him to study the use of multi-county park in particular, and to develop a program that we could bring back to county council. I don't have an anticipated completion date at this time, but it is under study by Howell, Linkus, and Nettles.
Okay, Ms. Honeycutt?
No, sir, but I appreciate that we're taking a hard look at this. I do feel like it's an underutilized resource. Have you gotten any response that it would require any state legislation or legislative changes to accomplish? Or is it in those 3 areas they've had it, it's usable?
No, it is definitely usable as it stands now. The thing we've asked Sam Howell to do is to come back to us with advice about how to use it. And obviously some of that has to do with what we're faced with eventually as we do try to structure deals.
Thank you.
But it's been done.
Okay.
Yeah, just to comment, Mr. Dykes, as you're sorting that out with the attorneys, this is just sort of, you mentioned pro formas, and the cash flow is what I'm going to be interested in knowing what goes from pocket A to B to C, how does the cash flow
Right.
in that particular situation? That's what I would be
Well,
interested to see.
I'll tell you what I've learned thus far, just from these three counties, is that a typical scenario seems to be that the brain trust at your housing authority and the folks that analyze pro formas will look very carefully at a pro forma, and they'll poke at it from every direction and try to ascertain how lean it is and how effective it is already. And then if you've got this delta that exists between the needed ROI in a pro forma, and you're just not getting there, these tools sometimes come into play to take the tax load and relieve it to some degree.
Thank you,
So
sir.
That's the essence of it.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Dykes, for that update. Look forward to getting some more information as it becomes available. And if you get that information, Mr. Dykes, you probably can just send it out to council members so they can, look at it. So when you do come back for the presentation, if they got any questions, they can ask and then shorten the length of time. All right, thank you so much. All right. We move to item 6, which is A and B financial incentives for Project Torch and financial incentives for Project Zed. What is the pleasure?
I'll move for approval of A and B. I'm sorry.
Moved by Ms. Johnson, second by Ms. Honeycutt. That's good. All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, ayes have it. Do we need to?
5C.
I didn't see C on mine.
Skip 3 and 4, didn't we?
5C was reconvene the housing steering.
Yeah, I thought we already voted on that.
No, we didn't do 3.
I thought, yeah, somebody made a motion and we said yes.
That was
5C, we made a motion and it was passed. But anyway, I'll go back over because I know I did.
5C was taken care of earlier. However,
Okay.
items 3 and 4 are still
3 and 4.
outstanding.
Okay.
Yeah, I know I go over to 3 and 4. So 5C, let's make it clear again so she can put it on the record. But I know we did because somebody made the motion, Reverend Milton, I believe, and it was
Okay.
seconded.
Yes.
And it was all in
5C
favor
was
was
done.
aye.
Okay.
Who seconded? Ms. Johnson did?
I have Mr. Stiles. Yes. It was,
Okay. Okay, sorry.
All right, okay.
I missed that.
All right, so now we're going to move up the ladder to A, number 4A, critical home repair program funding. What is the pleasure? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Question. I really like what I've seen here, and I appreciate the pre-qualification standards. I think that keeps the playing field level for everybody. Mr. Tootin or whoever, the funding for these amounts, I mean, does this go out as draws as construction is worked on, or do we give them at lump sum? How does the money get distributed? Ooh.
We will reimburse their costs. Some of them may have advances, but if they do, we'll make sure they have policies and look at it. But we pay for their cost, including staff costs if they have them. Okay?
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. All right, item number 3, we have an update from the Greenbelt Transportation Sales.
And I would, if there's a motion needed to approve, that presentation was outstanding. I also liked all the charts and the minority lands. I would, if we need to move for approval on anything, I would certainly move for approval of that presentation.
Which one that is? 3A. 3A, that's the transportation sales tax update?
It's just
Sir?
a presentation.
Yeah, do we?
Is there
It's
any-
just a presentation.
Okay, I'm
yes.
sorry. Okay.
It doesn't need a vote or anything, just a
Okay.
presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Transportation sales tax update, 5A, 3A.
Opportunity for your quarterly Greenbelt update. Total projects, we've had 194 of those. All the changes you're going to hear about since I provided this in September are largely related to the 6 projects that you approved last week. So 194 total projects, and you can see the breakdown between fee simple, rural, urban, conservation easements. 24,655 acres have now been protected by the Greenbelt program at a cost of $134.9 million. Coming at an average cost per acre of $5,357. And this has generated $173.2 million in match, or 128%. Public access lands are 11,581. That just means that there's some degree of public access. And we've put $148.9 million into public access lands. Our minority funding, $57.5 million, has gone to minority land. You can see the definition there at the bottom of the slide, and it accounts for 3,705 acres.
Let me ask this question.
Yes, sir.
So when we make these presentations, I've been saying this for a long time, why can't we make the numbers bigger so people out there can see, you know, like the print? Is there a way we can make these print big so people can see it from
Sure,
the audience?
that prints the definition of what constitutes minority lands, but I can certainly.
I mean, on all our presentations, I'm talking about, you know, in the white area there, it's so small, it's hard for the people in the audience to read that stuff, and they don't have a sheet like we have up here reading. So in all our presentations, not yours, but in all of ours, I'd act like the numbers be, well, the letters be made more bold so people can read as you go along. It's not your presentation, but all presentations. Is that something we can do? Who's in charge of the technology?
Would be when they set up their PowerPoint, like each individual person.
Yeah, make it.
Would have to set up their
Yeah,
PowerPoint.
set it up enough
Yes,
so
sir.
people can see it from the audience. Thank you.
We can do that.
You're welcome. Greenbelt goals update. You can see that we're still striving to reach 3 of our 6 goals. The biggest jump with the last 6 projects that were approved were in urban lands. That jumped 10% due to the Ingleside-Weber Park System project. And then we've had 4 closings since September when I last presented this information: Deerhead Oak, Legacy Live Oak Memorial Park expansions, Oakville Burden Creek, and the Sea Island Small Farmers Cooperative. We have several closings pending. You can see the list there, and that does include the 6 projects you approved last week. After those approvals, there's $16 million left in rural funding for the rest of FY23, $2.6 million urban, and $18.6 million total. This slide shows the current available balances in the far right column for each urban entity. You know that urban unincorporated is in the negative and will remain so for several years. With the approval of the Folly Beach project, they are also in the negative, just over $200,000, but should be back on top in about 5 years. Next slide shows the projected total lifetime balance projection. You can see those over on the right, and everyone is in the positive there. And lastly, we opened a winter application cycle on October 31st. That'll close on January 27th. Any questions?
Any questions for the gentleman? All right. Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
All right. So now we move to 3B, which is the Town of Allendale request to amend the Jefferson Tract Greenbelt Grant Agreement. There's a presentation.
Yes, sir. I'll roll right into that. I'm going to give you a brief history of how we got to here. 2009, County Council awarded just over $5.1 million to the Town of Allendale for 292 acres known as the Jefferson Tract. At that time, Council placed 2 special conditions on that award. Number 1, the proceeds from the dirt mining and related activities must be used to develop the park. And number 2, if any other entity beside the town should manage the project, then the mining proceeds must be returned to the Greenbelt program. Their Greenbelt Grant Agreement, which governs uses on the property, states that the passive park uses consist of and are limited to walking, jogging, biking, crabbing, fishing, water recreation, and wildlife nature observation and enjoyment. The town's application, which is what we based the grant agreement off of, and accompanying master plan further confirmed a very passive intended use for the park, which I would label as a nature park. Ordinance 1424, Section 5I states that properties, Greenbelt properties must be managed and maintained to preserve the same uses for which they applied for. Uses that are adverse to the original purposes can be changed, but they do require a 2/3 vote of the board following a finding of fact that the use is one that furthers the original purpose of this ordinance, and 2, a majority vote of county council. Back in June, the town presented a new park master plan to the GAB. Some of the features and uses in that plan were changed. They would conflict with the grant agreement, but with certain conditions, staff felt that it would still further the goals of the Greenbelt plan and ordinances. So therefore, a grant agreement amendment would be required. The GAB directed me at that time to draft a sample amendment for their review at their next meeting. This is that sample amendment. So there's really 3 different sections that we recommended changing. That first one is essentially to remove the requirement that if someone partners with the town to operate that project, run that project, that they would not have to pay the dirt mining back to the Greenbelt program. And the thought behind that was we all want to get it open, and if partners can do that, we're all for that. We also added the word active to their uses because we felt like with the new uses, especially, we'll get into those in just a little bit, camping, the stage, and the dog park, that we're getting into active territory. And then the third change is where we allow these new uses and put some limitations on those. So those new uses would be a performance stage, not to exceed 3,000 square feet of impervious surfaces, off-leash dog park no larger than an acre, platform campsites limited to 10 in number and an aggregate footprint of 3,200 square feet, paved camping pads for host campers, 2 in number and a limit of 1,200 square feet, activity center not to exceed 3,000 square feet of impervious surfaces, picnic shelters, primitive camping, disc golf, and special events. We also recommended a total impervious surface restriction for the property of 0.5%, which is 63,480 square feet. Last month, the GAB considered this request. They considered the proposed grant agreement amendment. And what the first motion that was made was to defer consideration of the grant agreement amendments until that the town could come back, show that they could operate the park under the passive uses which they were granted. And then the second motion, which was to approve the amendment as written, failed because it did not reach the 2/3 majority required in the ordinance for the GAB vote. So that request was then directed to County Council without a GAB recommendation.
Okay, any questions from council members? And then we'll hear from the town of Albany. Any questions? All right, does anybody here representing the town? Yes, Mr. Sines. I thought the mayor was going to be here, but I don't see her.
Mayor Green.
All right, I didn't see you. You were sitting in there. All right, will you come on that while Mr. Sines asks the question?
Yes, sir. Do I understand this right? The GAB has to approve this before we approve it, but they've deferred?
The ordinance requires both a 2/3 vote of approval by the GAB as well as approval by County Council. They could not reach the 2/3 approval, and they also, a motion to defer this also did not pass.
Okay,
So it comes to you without recommendation.
So even if so Ms. Ham, so if County Council approved it tonight, which I'm not in favor of, wouldn't it still have to pass by the GAB, a 2/3 vote of the GAB?
So that's the way that your ordinance is written, that it should pass the 2/3 vote by the GAB before it comes to county council. However, the GAB is a board appointed by council. Council tends to have the authority to make these types of decisions. I think that this has happened at least one time in the past where council has considered a matter that did not receive the 2/3 vote of the GAB.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going down that same path, the 2/3. I'm not sure what, maybe Mr. Schweers or somebody that's been here for a while remembers why that was put in place at the time, but putting that 2/3 vote on an unelected body just, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. I think this council should consider taking that out of the ordinance. I mean, this project withstanding, that just really muddies the water, in my opinion.
Is that a motion?
I would move that. I would move for consideration for that.
To remove the 2/3?
To take the 2/3 out of the ordinance.
Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. Mr. Swires?
So that would require 3 readings to change the ordinance, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Raise your hand if you're a nay. All right.
Doesn't pass.
So we'll send it to full council without a recommendation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could, we're just wrapped up our 5-year plan review, and this is one of the items we plan to bring to you in the first quarter of next year for potential changes.
I'm sorry, they were in my ear. What did you say now?
The two-thirds requirement is something that we'd identified as part of the five-year plan review that we had planned to bring to you in January or February as part of the total five-year plan update, and recommend that be changed in addition to some other items in the
So he's already
ordinance.
recommend that. When's that coming to us?
January or February.
Okay. Because I was going to change my vote and be on the winning side, but that's all right. I leave it at that. If he's coming in January, we leave it at that. Go right ahead, madam.
Good evening. And I feel like I'm a repeat on this charge. We've been going over and over and over with this. But I would say to you that we have an opportunity in the northeast area of Charleston County to have a municipal park developed on a 355-acre parcel of land. Give you a brief history. If it wasn't for the residents in the town of Wandale, we wouldn't have this park. The residents, the homegrown people, came here in large numbers, despite what a small group of residents are opposing the development of this project. We would do ourselves a great disservice should we allow few negative individuals who have relocated from other municipalities to derail a much-needed, well-deserved enhancement to our community. The schools, the Boy Scouts, American League Children, the Girl Scouts, the Youth League, the churches, and the entire East Cooper community enjoys this park. MUSC has used this park on several occasions, and also the cyclists. To the contrary, it would provide opportunities for economic growth, recreational activities, and a place where residents of the entire East Cooper communities from Mount Pleasant to McClellanville can enjoy family gatherings such as family reunions, wedding picnics, walking trails, camping, bicycling, jogging, and other recreational activities. The people that are really complaining, they could afford whatever they want. Yes, they can. But some of the people, the majority of the people in the Wandale community, we can't move from this point to that point because we don't have that luxury. However, some people are just hateful. They don't want to see us thrive. The children, we talk about the children. The principal at St. James Santee Elementary School are engaging in a lot of camping so the kids could be exposed. How many of you ever heard of 4-H? We've serviced the 4-H club. Now, what's wrong with the 4-H club coming out having campsites? The property that we used to have called Camp CV no longer exists because that's under private owner now. So what is the problem? I want to know what is the problem. We have to fight for everything. And a few people, not the homegrown people, a few people across the street from this park says no. So the big hiccup here now. So you want to vote for 15 families or the entire East Cooper community, which wants this to exist? It would be wrong, very much wrong, for you to take this from our residents, our homegrown residents. And I say that very, very boastfully, because we are the ones that caused this park to be where it is right now. And we will stand up to keep it. And we will not allow a certain group to come and tell us, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. This is not a dictatorship. This is a community that's gelled together, and we're going to stay together. And we want you to help us to maintain what we've started. We've done everything you asked us to do. And I have petitions here tonight. I have almost 700 signatures from Olive Branch Church on back to Germanville Church. And the pastor and the bishop is in support of this project. Please follow your heart, not your mind. Thank you.
Would you give those signatures to our assistant clerk, so for the record?
I will.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Johnson.
But they want to change it.
I'd like to make a motion that we defer this item until our December 1 meeting when we have the full council here, please.
Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. Any discussion? Mr. Swears?
I know at least those that opposed this amendment were supposed to speak as well. So I would at least like to allow them to speak.
If they signed up, but this is a finance committee meeting now. This is not a regular council.
I was told that since the town was going to be given time, that the neighbors were going to be given equal time.
I don't know who
Is that
told you
not
that.
correct?
Please, not right now. I don't know who told you that, Mr. Swears, but what we normally do on finance, we don't allow, but if you got one person from that who represents them, I'll give them an opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes.
Right, Mr. Chairman, I specifically addressed that with you. And I said that the town, if the town was going to speak, could the opposing views speak? And you said yes, you would allow one person to speak representing those that oppose.
I just said one person can speak, but when you talk about all the people, they got to sign up like everybody else at a county council meeting.
I understand that.
So if this one person wants to come up, I'll give them 7 minutes as well. Okay, who's from the community that's going to speak for the community? Go right up.
Tell him, ask him where he's from.
No, that's right. Hey. This is my meeting now, and I'm not going to let it get out of control. So if you're not going to be calm and cool, then we're going to ask you to leave. Sir, you can go right over there. Just give us your name and your address.
Mr. Chairman, while he's doing that, if we take an action in finance, we would also take that action in council, which would be after public comments. Is that correct?
Yes, because we're not going to do it all in the same. Yes, sir.
Some people may have signed up for public comments to speak.
Yeah. So we'll get a chance to hear them, regardless of what what happens here. We will get a chance to hear them.
In public comments. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Alan Rio. I live at 7849 Gold Bay Drive in Allendale, South Carolina, 29429. I am one of the neighbors that the mayor has referenced. For a little bit of context, I've been active in the community. I currently sit on the Board of Zoning Appeals and have been appointed to the Plan's Master Steering Committee. So despite the mayor's characterization as myself and my neighbors as being not residents, not long-term residents, not caring about the community, I find that somewhat disingenuous considering that there are a number of members of the community that are actively involved in the governance of the community as well as volunteer activities. With respect to the park, the mayor is correct. There is a significant portion of the community that is opposed to the recharacterization of this park from passive to active. Since its inception, the town administrator has consistently met with the neighbors that were most impacted by the location of this park and promised that this would be a passive park for nature and conservation. The entire process of developing this park relied on a development scheme that included mining and the generation of funds. The generation of those funds were not sufficient to complete the development of the passive park. The town is currently in litigation over that because they can't account for the money. So item number one is that the accounting and the management of this has been very poorly handled or mishandled from the beginning. There's a lot of misinformation within the community about exactly what the town means by an active park. A simple look at the Facebook blogs that are associated with our community have the residents saying all kinds of wild things. What that demonstrates to me is that the town has not been very clear nor very transparent in its plans for the development of the park. All this misinformation, while the citizens have the responsibility to be informed, the town is not doing a very good job of informing its citizenry. There was a survey that was conducted. And one of the items on the survey were what the citizens would like to see in the park. Camping and some of these activities that were presented by the GAB rated very low on the survey as being undesirable. Consultants were hired, came in and said, survey's invalid because there wasn't enough people. It sounds to me a little bit like they just didn't like the results. The thing that is most concerning, given the town's past history with the financial management of the park, is that we have yet to receive any financial projections. It was publicly stated by the mayor that the reason for going active was to generate revenue so that the park could be completed. Now, if that revenue is to be generated, then there should be some financial projections showing revenue and costs and that the town can effectively pull this off. The bottom line here for a lot of us is that if the town can't handle this and if the revenue can't be generated, there's going to be a deficit. Who does that deficit fall on? It likely falls on the citizens of the town of Awendaw, the very people that many of the very people that the mayor says can't afford to do anything. The town could very well get a feeling for the town's ability or willingness to carry this burden by simply doing, put it to a vote. Let's have a measure. Are we willing to tax ourselves in order to handle the deficit or the income that's necessary to deal with this town? It's clear to me, and it should be clear to many people here, that the town of Awendaw is probably due for some new leadership. After hearing what I heard today, I'm appalled. It will be helping to create that new leadership. In the meantime, until that leadership can be voted into office, I am specifically appealing to you to protect us from the town making poor decisions on the lack without proper information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right. So Johnson has a motion on the floor to defer. Okay, that's a motion until December 1. All right.
I'd like to speak. Okay. I appreciate both presentations. I have heard from quite a few, I would say dozens, but that does not really describe how many folks I have heard from that oppose this amendment. And you would wonder why. Who doesn't want a park next to them? I mean, you should welcome a park. That should be a gift, okay? But there are reasons these folks have opposed this park. The first thing that started happening with the creation of the park, the very first thing that started happening is clear cutting the trees, okay? Clear cutting the trees in the park that you want to live next to. They're clear cutting the trees, okay? But that was in order to do the dirt mining. The dirt mining lasted, I think, for 3 years. if I'm not mistaken, three years of dirt mining on a park paid for with county funds. And there are folks that live right across the paved road from this park. Has anyone ever been that close to a dirt mine? Can you imagine that for 3 years? Do you think that would turn people sour about this park? I think it would, and I don't blame these folks. I have heard from them for those 3 years and beyond. And yes, I do greatly sympathize with them. And now the proposal is going from passive, that was all the passive park. The creation of the passive park was all that. Now we're talking about going to an active park, including stage events. You know, the town would hope that those are hugely successful. Door Road is very lightly traveled, other than the dirt mining trucks over the last 3 years. Door Road is very lightly traveled. This would bring events there, probably mostly weekends, but I cannot imagine Door Road with a volume of vehicles on it. Boone Hall is a great example. Boone Hall is in an urban area. You expect some traffic. Do you want Boone Hall style traffic on Door Road? To me, because of a greenbelt parcel, that's just hard for me to comprehend. So, in my mind, though, the folks that oppose this amendment are not opposing the park in general. They are opposing the amendment making it an active park. They still support the passive park. The passive park has not been done. Even if the active park is done, the passive features will still need to be done. Those things have not been done yet. So to me, this request is premature. I don't think the neighbors are even saying passive park, that's it, forever and ever. All they're saying is do what you said you would do first. That is a passive park. They need money to do the passive park. They're in a lawsuit with our former chairman, quite frankly, over the funds that should have been received by the town. That has not been resolved yet. Therefore, they have not done significant work on the passive part. To me, that's stage one. Why would we approve stage two at this point when stage one has not even reached fruition? All we have to do is stay where we are now with the current restrictions on it. Let's get stage one done first, and then let's reconsider if anything additional would be acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Dr. Moody?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Swears, I agree with you. The litigation does concern me because that's still hanging out there. It's messy. And, I don't know, now's the time to insert ourselves in this thing where that's still hanging around out there. One of the amendments I think I saw too was a reversal of the mining money. Did I see that correctly? That would not come back to the county?
No, that the mining money in all cases would still,
okay, I thought I saw
would
in the
still
amendment.
Require that it be reinvested into the park.
Into the park, okay. But my bigger issue is sort of the precedence this sets, because this looks and feels to me like a Charleston County park. Mm-hmm. And, we just approved a huge deal, Palmetto Commerce Parkway, for the city of North Charleston. What's to stop them from coming back and saying, hey, we're going to put a bandstand up? You let Allendale do it. We're going to put a bandstand up, and we're going to let campsites happen, or any other green space that we've approved. This just looks and feels to me like a Charleston County park as proposed. I'm worried more about the precedent of prior deals we've done coming back and saying, well, we'd like to change ours now that you let this go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody else? All right, all in favor of deferral signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Is that 1, 2, 3, 4? Okay,
Motion fails.
and make me part out,
Yes, sir.
opposition to that too.
Okay.
All right. So the motion-
Point of order, Ms. Ham, if a motion does not pass here, then this agenda item fails, correct?
Well, that was a motion for deferral. I don't think you were,
Right.
that's.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But if a positive motion is not made right now, then this item fails. It doesn't go to county council, in other words.
Recommendation to move forward to county council, that will be correct.
Okay? So, the deferral, so where we at now with the park? Is there a motion on the floor to approve? All right, ain't no motion on the floor. This item just dies in committee. Okay? So that concludes our Finance Committee meeting. We now move into our public comments, I believe, right? We don't have no public hearings?
We have two public hearings.
Two public hearings, let's
Yes,
go to
sir.
the public hearings and then we go to public comments.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that Charleston County Council will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 17th, 2022, before final approval by the council of an ordinance to further amend the agreement for development of a joint county industrial park by and between Charleston County, South Carolina, and Colleton County, South Carolina.
All right, did anybody sign up to speak on this one?
Yes, Anthony Bryant.
Okay, Mr. Bryant, give us your name and address, sir. We give you 2 minutes.
Agenda item 6A, B, I, H, 4A, and 8D under Planning Enabling Act, Economic Development, Growth, and Public Safety. To dissent against incentives, measurable outcomes, and funding, planning, programming, budgeting, and evaluation systems. The set policy not specifically addressed by the state law. This dissent is to be protected under the Homeland Security Act 2002, Section Civil Rights, Civil Liberties, in Order 589 of the Supreme Court of the United States. All federal courts were closed in 2021. The state's Ports Authority allowed Operation Seahawk to take place outside of the state Ports Authority. Therefore, 13 sheriffs of South Carolina that violated federal and state law, matter of fact, one of these counties, one of the sheriffs violated state law, federal law too. If you were arrested during that period of time, regarding speaking against economic development, you could be held in jail indefinitely, knowing only criminal misconduct complaints under state law can be received by the solicitor, the attorney general, and law enforcement jurisdiction. So these economic development incentives are very important to have. But as we heard under Robert Rules, a councilman mentioned a direct lobbyist group. That direct lobbyist group has a lot of power throughout the country. And if you're against any project, any deal, they have capacity through their organization to use the federal, state, county, and local police to investigate people. Okay, so this is real for me. I made tons of public comment against that public entity, those organizations, for creating a disparity in our community we're talking about tonight. The very economic disparity you face right now is because of that group, that organization. Matter of fact, they call it the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. U.S. Chamber of Commerce, one of the biggest groups in the country, with more money than anybody, can buy anything they want to buy. But they can't buy me. I personally believe that they can invest. For example, a organization went for incentives tonight, was rejected because of the Leatherman terminal. What's that got to do with county council?
All right, anybody else?
That's it for that.
Public hearing?
Notice is hereby given that Charleston County Council will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 17th, 2022, before final approval by the council of an ordinance entitled An Ordinance to Further Amend the Agreement for the Establishment of a Multi-County Industrial Business Park for properties located in a redevelopment project area by and between Charleston County, South Carolina, and Colleton County, South Carolina.
Robert Rules provides for the chairman to interrupt any speaker to get information about a point of information about the rules of parliamentary inquiries. The chairman of the body cannot be heard. Safety, concerns, comforts, question of privilege, breach of the rules, point of order. The body disagrees with the call of unanimous dissent. With council primary areas for setting public policy such as establishing community vision, state the organizational mission, defining areas of county administrators' authority not specifically addressed by state law, the manner in which county council meetings are conducted. at the closing comments made the past couple of months having to do with governance. When people make direct comments about people making public comments in public hearing on behalf of direct lobbyist groups, right? What does it have to do with what you do? It's about governance. It's about governance. Robert Rules of Orders protect me from you. From you. So if you have an issue with someone before the body, you can refer my name to the sheriff or SLED or the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney, if you're black. And the Department of Justice clearly stated 241 and 242, the color of the law is real in Charleston County. The administrator for the Sheriff's Department was given a not a public reprimand, but given the right to use force against somebody. So if this body has funded a group that have the power to indirect initiatives on people for economic development purposes, then I'm uncomfortable with that under Robert Rules of Order.
Anybody else? All right, that concludes the public hearing. We're now going to public comments. How many people we had signed up?
People.
All right, we give everybody 2 minutes apiece. Who's our first speaker?
Susan Cox, followed by Jonathan Kevin.
All right, we just need your name and address, and you got 2 minutes from Susan.
Yes, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Susan Cox, I live at 6209 Rudder Lane in Allendale. And I am asking that you deny this request by the town of Allendale to change the terms of their grant from passive to active. The park idea was sold to the residents of Allendale as a passive park. We were told that it would be a natural area with a lake and walking trails. And now, because of the many failures of this town administration, they're doing a bait and switch. The town entered into a poor contract with the sand miner at the site. They failed to supervise the contractor. They failed to demand on a timely basis documentation from the contractor, and now they claim they need more money. Allendale does not have the staff to manage a park. They don't have the staff to manage a park manager. They don't have the staff, and they have no estimates of the cost to build any of these things that they envision. They have no estimates of any revenue that would be brought in by any of these things that they envision. They have no business plan at all. At the last town council meeting, Greg Saxton informed the council that there is a problem at the Thompson Hill Park, which is just up the road, that drug sellers and drug users were taking advantage of the park and were leaving drug paraphernalia all around. And as Gregory stated, he is concerned that children and others who come to this park would be injured by this drug paraphernalia that's left around. And my question is, why would we then want to put another similar location in this same area unless Charleston County has, of course, provided sufficient funds for there to be additional police patrols in the area? I don't know if you have or not. As prescribed in the rural Greenbelt application, this passive park use should be limited to walking, jogging, biking, crabbing, fishing, water recreation, and wildlife observation. We have no objection to that. But we request that the town of Allendale deny the request by.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think a number of folks from Allendale are here, and we might hear from 10 of them, but please explain to them that
You can do that.
Okay, basically the proposed amendment from the town of Allendale died. Okay, it is not coming before us because it did not pass through committee. Okay.
So you'd rather not hear our concerns?
Call me later, how about that?
If I can just take 2 minutes.
Y'all can still speak, please do, but I just wanted y'all to understand that.
And we do. Thank you, Dickie. Jonathan Kennan, 7938 Gull Bay Drive. I do live less than 300 feet from the park, as Mr. Schweers pointed out. We lived for 3 years with not just dust, but dirt on our house. The trucks running up and down a newly paved Door Road has basically destroyed the road now that was paved less than 6 months before the mining started. What we've figured out is that these dangerous holes and potholes will have to be fixed. The board, the Bulls Bay folks here, there's about 20 of us. We've all been actively involved in this park. We believe in a passive park. We want a passive park, as was presented to us over 3 years ago, that it was going to be a passive park. Everybody was on board with it. Loved the idea of that. There has been a change, obviously, because the town has shown that it has the inability to manage the park and to raise the funds, and to nevertheless couldn't even manage the trucks going and coming from the dirt mine to actually find how much money was being taken out, how much dirt was being taken out, and how much money was owed to the town. We also feel that the lack of planning and foresight that was given to the park is detrimental to the citizens of Alwendaw and, of course, to our community directly across the street. So we do appreciate what you all have done for the park, that we are keeping it passive. We're able to use it as it was intended, as the monies for the Greenbelt had been prescribed, and we're very happy that you have come to this decision. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Next is Lynn Vickery and then Anthony Bryant.
My name is Lynn Vickery. I live at 8470 Door Road, right down the road from the park in Alwendaw. I've lived there for over 22 years. I'd like to read an excerpt from an article that appeared in the Post and Courier on April 10th of 2016 by Diane Nicht, and I quote, "Money to purchase the 291-acre Jefferson tract for the park came from the county's Greenbelt program, which was funded by a voter-approved half-cent sales tax for transportation projects and land preservation. In 2009, Summey joined the majority of county council members in voting to approve the land purchase on Door Road, which included a plan to create a lake there by mining and selling dirt. Wallace said a park with a lake, trails, and open areas is needed in Alwendaw, which sits in the Francis Marion National Forest. The park's new lake will provide a place for children to swim, fish, and kayak, he said, and the town can hold gatherings on the park's grassy area." And I quote Bill Wallace here, "We have 500,000 acres of trees," Wallace said. "We don't have a lake. The only way the town of about 1,300 residents will get its park is through its arrangement with Summey to sell the dirt and pay for its development," Wallace said. That arrangement calls for Jackson Development to do $500,000 in work on the park in exchange for the dirt mining rights to recoup its costs. And on that, I rest my case. Anybody can access this in the archives of the Post and Courier. It's April 10th, 2016, and the article is entitled, "Alwendaw Park Dirt Deal Raises Concerns," and Diane Nicht was the author. And I thank everyone for your time.
Okay, Mr. Bryant.
Right there, many years ago, I remember this building was open. In about a million years, my service would be maligned in this fashion, but it has. What do you do when you're maligned? You continue to speak. This is the most sacred place to be as a citizen. It's your 2 minutes to come up and be heard. It's vitally important. And so I love to see people in meetings, participating, being involved, not really involved in partisan activity, but here just for their neighborhood, just for, water, something small, nothing big. And we grew in Charleston, but we ain't grown. We ain't grown. Everybody has a right to be heard at these meetings. I don't care if you like what they say or don't say. Your speech is to be within the context of decorum, though, under the Robert Rules of Order, and the speaker can't interrupt you. And a lot of things have been said tonight. The speaker could interrupt a lot of people, but he didn't. And for that, I always respected Teddy for that, for his leadership. And this council leadership, the pandemic was very tough on you. It's a tough pandemic. You deserve credit for what you've done in this pandemic. There's no council in the history dealt with a pandemic. So the criticism is not from just being critical, but we can't identify policies and practices during the pandemic. We can't establish causation during the pandemic. We can't deal with disparity during the pandemic. We can literally do nothing in a pandemic other than to hope we don't get sick. So for me, I'm happy to be the guy at the meetings, drawing it up, raising a little sand. I have my fun for my 2 minutes, and I hope that more people come to meetings, your school board meetings, all your meetings, participate, be involved. Even if you're unpopular, come anyway. It's your right as an American citizen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Michael German and then Alan Rio.
German, 385 Greer Street, Mount Pleasant, Snound Community, East Cooper. I'm here to talk about our sewer issue, but I think I had an answer that I'm somewhat satisfied with, and we're going to move forward with that. But I'm also disappointed in the council, especially when Mr. Swears said what he said about Long Point Road. He mentioned that the overcrowding on Long Point Road, how that's going to affect the traffic, how bogs down traffic, but the same thing goes on 17 every time there's an event on Boone Hall Plantation. Everybody is affected. The growth on Long Point Road is ridiculous. We allowed subdivisions to go in and out of that area. When traffic's backed up, it comes through the Snound community. Now, here's where I'm confused, and I stand in agreement with the town of Onondaga wanting this park. You mentioned Dole Road. I can't get it. When it comes to other than us, it seems like it's such a tragedy to have the increases on those type roads. But look at Long Point Road. Look what we do to all of our African American communities in the East Cooper and probably all over. It's never not enough. We take the blunt of everything. And when we ask for one thing that'll make the majority of the people in those community, in that town satisfied, we vote against it. It's just appalling to me that things like this can go on again in 2022. It's almost like it's back when I can even come in this building and vote. It's just, I just don't understand that. There's too much of disparity. There's just too much of all kinds of other things that's going on and nobody's paying attention to except where I live, the dirt coming from. We've been doing that and taking advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Rio, Christopher Ott.
Alan Rio, 7849 Gold Bay Drive, Allendale. Thank you for the opportunity to make the ad hoc presentation. You caught me a little bit by surprise. I am here right now to simply reiterate that as a citizen of the town of Allendale, I'm an 8-year resident, so I don't quite understand the assertions that there's a them versus us because I was born here and I was not. We are one community. We all pay the same taxes. We all pray to the same God. I simply want to state that as a citizen of the town of Allendale, as a citizen directly impacted by the proximity of the park, the passive park is something that my family, and all of the people that are my neighbors fully support. And I will rededicate myself to working with the administration and the elected officials of the town of Allendale to help the passive portion of this park come to fruition. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Next.
Christopher Ott, then Andrea Frazier.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Ott. I live at 7918 Gull Bay Drive. I'm going to alter my comments a little bit about the park due to our previous actions. I am a new resident to Allendale. I first moved to Charleston County in 2002 as an active duty member of the Air Force. I lived here until 2008 and then all over. I moved back in 2020. During that time, though, I had the fortunate opportunity to live in Germany for 5 years. My German friends would always say, hey, that have traveled to America, we might have cathedrals and castles and hundreds of years of history, but you have vast open spaces, national parks, and land. Allendale is unique. We have land. We are bordered by one of the largest national forests in South Carolina. Cape Romaine is the longest stretch of protected seashore in South Carolina. That gives Ondaw Park and our town unique opportunities that we want to throw away on making it a very active park. Preserving it as passive preserves it for everyone and everyone's use. It doesn't take away from its use at all by keeping it passive. Basically, I think one of the propositions or something I brought up with the town council was certifying it as a dark skies park. This is a very passive way. There are no dark sky certified places in South Carolina, and it would put us online with places like Yellowstone, Zion National Park. These are places where you can go out, view the sky, and take the uniqueness of Ondaw and elevate it, okay? And those are passive. That is one passive use you could have for the park, which could generate revenue, educational opportunities for all that we need to take advantage of and not just focus on camping and stage type events. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Andrea Frazier, Kevin Barry.
I thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm going to shorten my speech as well because what I was planning on talking about was the camping and the stage events, which is something that we do not want as residents of Allendale, but we do want the active park. I have attended the GAB meetings. I'm sorry, as passive. I did attend the GAB meetings all summer long, and Elizabeth made the recommendation that the park be implemented as is, as the agreement stands, and that is what we would like. She also stated that maybe at a later time, after implementation is in place, that then the town could come back. And we as a community are in agreement with that process. Let's get it open. Let's get it moving. 2 weeks ago, I actually walked over there with a few of my neighbors, went over to the park. We did go in behind the gates because it's easily accessible. There is a gate up, but there's probably 10 feet on either side of the gate where you can easily walk through. We saw four-wheelers, we saw beer cans, we saw wine cans. There were airsoft pellets out by the lake. We specifically went over there to look for the alligators, which is what we were told is in the pond. We did not see any at all, but that does not mean that they're not there. So if we could get them to move forward with starting with the trails, I'm planning on going over there with my husband with a fishing pole and taking a bobber because the alligators will come after a bobber. If they're in the water, we'll know that they're there. And then I know that through talking with Eric Davis, it's just a matter of submitting a permit to get them to be removed. So it's a beautiful piece of property. If I could show you on my phone the pictures that I took over there of the trees and the water and the reflections and how beautiful it was, you would really enjoy it. So thank you all for denying this and making it.
Thank you.
Kevin Barry, and then Amber Campbell Moore. Amber Campbell Moore. Okay.
Amber Campbell Moore, 2021 Reynolds Avenue. Good evening, Council.
Did you say Reynolds? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm a member of the Charleston Area Justice Ministry. All who are here in support of affordable housing, will you please stand?
What is this for?
Did you know that in the state of South Carolina, there are almost 160,000 families who rent that are considered extremely low income? That's 27%. You might be thinking, well, what does that have to do with Charleston County? Well, sadly, our county doesn't fare much better. A person earning minimum wage would have to work 91 hours per week to afford a modest one-bedroom apartment here. And please, don't take my word for it. You can look it up on the Low Income Housing Coalition website. I'm not shedding any new light on the fact that Charleston is in a housing crisis. You acknowledge this crisis when you appointed a special housing committee to help craft the Housing Our Futures plan with the consultants from Development Strategies. That plan was supposed to be released to the public, and it has yet to be done. The committee needs to be reconvened to help with the implementation of the plan. We hope you vote that way today. You acknowledged the housing crisis when you set aside $20 million for affordable housing. Now we are asking that you continue to acknowledge that this housing crisis needs a serious solution. We are asking that you establish an affordable housing trust fund and secure a recurring funding source. This proven method addresses a shortage of affordable housing, and it's a return on investment that our community can see and believe in. It's a fiscally responsible way to spend our tax dollars. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's our last speaker, I would presume. Okay, at this time, we are going to go into our regularly scheduled county council meeting. Ms. Salisbury, item number 1 would be the Freedom of Information Act.
Okay.
You think we need to do the prayer?
No, we don't. No, sir.
Yeah, 'cause this is regular.
Yes, sir.
Freedom of Information Act.
Freedom of Information Act, notice of meetings and agendas were furnished to news media and persons requesting notification.
Item number 2 has been removed. Item
Both items.
3A and 3B, is there a second? Second. Well, we don't need to do it as third reading.
Right. And
That's scratched out.
an ordinance to further amend the agreement for development of a joint county industrial park by and between Charleston County, South Carolina, and Colleton County, South Carolina, providing for the development of a jointly owned and operated industrial business park so as to include additional property in Charleston County as part of the joint county industrial park. Absent. Mrs. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Absent. Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers? Aye. Mr. Werman?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Ordinance passes third reading with 7 aye and 2 absent. And then item B is an ordinance to further amend the agreement for the establishment of a multi-county industrial business park for properties located in a redevelopment project area by and between Charleston County, South Carolina, and Colleton County, South Carolina, providing for the development of a multi-county industrial business park so as to include additional property in Charleston County as part of the multi-county industrial park. Mrs. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Moody? Aye. Mr. Sass? Aye. Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Werman?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Ordinance passes third reading with 7 ayes and 2 absent.
Item 4 is ZDL amendment, second reading. Ms. Salisbury?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to propose an amendment on the ZLDR amendments here. Spoke with a couple of folks. I would move that we amend to keep the definition of workforce housing at 120 AMI. I think we talked about this. The general idea being that moving it up to 150, getting a little bit away from the folks I think we're trying to help, but more so, I worry that we might get close to or cross the threshold of what the actual market price is in some of these areas, at which point we've basically created a de facto upzoning, and a pretty substantial one at that. So that's my reasoning for it. I talked to a number of folks and also did talk with our planning department and, understand the reasoning. I hope that basically I'll just tell you the reasoning is no one is taking us up on these offers right now. But I think we can maybe think about things a little bit more, recalibrate, and hopefully find maybe a more precise way of trying to address it. Or maybe this is the best way, but for now I'd say let's put the brakes on that piece.
I'll second your motion.
Second by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance amending the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance Number 1202 as amended at the following document locations, Chapter 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 12, with the right to amend up to third reading as amended at second reading.
Okay.
Ms. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Werman?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
The ordinance passes second reading with 7 ayes and 2 absent.
Okay, we move to item 5A. What is the pleasure?
For committee recommendation.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it, first reading.
An ordinance rezoning the real property located at 3245 Mill Street and 355 Dunmire Hill Road, parcel identification numbers 38515000017 and 38515000031, from the low-density residential R4 zoning district to the Mill Crossing Estates Plan Development PD 180 zoning district.
Okay, item 5C, what is the
Committee
pleasure?
recommendation.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it, first reading, Ms. Salisbury.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of tax agreement by and between Charleston County and an entity currently known to the county as Project Z, including any related or affiliated entities and any sponsor affiliates, whereby Charleston County will enter into a fee in lieu of taxes arrangement with Project Z, providing for payment by Project Z of certain fees in lieu of ad valorem taxes, providing for the allocation of fee in lieu of taxes paid by Project Z under the agreement for establishment of multi-county industrial business park and other matters relating thereto. We need to go back to 5B.
5 where?
5B.
Okay, 5B. I thought we already did.
No,
right.
sir.
Okay.
Do you have to call the roll on this?
All right, 5B, go right ahead,
Move for
please.
committee recommendation.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, ayes have it, first reading.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of tax agreement by and between a company known to the county and referred to for the time being as Project Torch and Charleston County, whereby Charleston County will enter into a fee in lieu of tax agreement with the company and providing for payment by the company of certain fees in lieu of ad valorem taxes, providing for special source revenue or infrastructure improvement credits, providing for the allocation of fees in lieu of taxes payable under the agreement for the establishment of a multi-county industrial business park and other matters relating thereto.
Okay, items 6A through I, what is the pleasure?
For approval.
Is there a second?
Well, Mr. Chairman, are we gonna take G separate?
If, once it is not.
I would like to take it separately.
All right, well, let's move out 6A through I, removal of G.
Wait, I think you said to do, because there was no recommendation from
Yeah, that goes-
finance,
yeah, that
you
goes
said
to-
to move that to December 6th.
Okay, that's right, that go to full council. All right, so A through I, with the exception of G, what is the pleasure?
Approval.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Item 7A, what is the pleasure? Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Let's take them one at a time. 8A, because B is no longer on the agenda. 8A.
Mr. Chairman, do we have any recommendations other than 8E?
I don't believe so.
No,
Ms. Clerk?
It's only E. Yes,
only
sir.
E, yeah, because 995
The
comes out.
recommendation on item 8E.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. Council comments, Mr. Swears?
G?
G is going to
Going to
December
focus-
6th.
That's December 6th, without a recommendation.
Okay.
You know, that was a tough discussion on the Jefferson tract, and those are always difficult. You know, the town is actually getting what they wanted originally, and now they have an opportunity to execute that. I also feel like the members of the neighborhood across the street would love to help them make the park the best passive park in Charleston County. So I'm hoping that if we can get this amendment proposal behind us, that things will build into something very good out there. That's all.
Nothing.
Yes, sir. I had a meeting today with the, some residents of the Riverland Drive community, and they were meeting with the Parks and Charleston County Parks and Recs in reference to the Christmas lighting, holiday lighting. And the traffic there has been horrendous. I understand there's usually about 10,000 visitation per day. And those residents have been complaining for many years. And we've met several times with the Parks and Rec, and they're trying to do their best as far as what is within their power to deter some of the traffic, and spreading it out throughout a week instead of just a couple of days, high traffic. But what I would like for us to consider is how to try to help in that situation with maybe some monies for the sheriff's department to have traffic directed during their peak time, because the residents are complaining that it takes them hours to get on they probably only have a mile, 2 miles of stretch in there from Camp Road to Maybank Highway. And they're concerned that emergency equipment is not going to be able to get to them on time, and there are wrecks during the time of all of this congestion. So I don't know where, maybe we can look at the contingency fund probably to find some monies, but I would like to see us look at how to address the situation before something tragic happens, and we have a chance to make some difference with that.
Ms. Johnson, I think they come out there, but they don't get out till 6. Okay, the police, the city of Charleston police officers, they are out there, but I think they don't come out till 6 p.m. And maybe it's 2 things they could do is, bring them in where we know people getting off at 4, bring them in at 4, but that would be after the park. But if I had my way, my recommendation would be every other year, every year, switch it. We got 3 big parks. We got one in North Charleston, Wanamaker. We got one in Palmetto and Mount Pleasant. And we got one in James Island. So shift the burden on every municipality. But I don't know if the Parks and Rec, what that would entail of doing. But I mean, that's one idea I would like to see somebody look at. You got it in James Island this year. Next year, bring it to North Charleston. Then the next year, bring it to Mount Pleasant. Everybody plays a part.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good idea too.
It's a great idea.
The city does help with the policing.
Right.
However, they do not direct traffic. They're
I
only
understand.
there.
Yeah, I understand. They right at the gate part.
Yeah.
But what I'm
right.
saying is, I think maybe we can petition and ask them to look into doing that and, transferring it from one year to the next. That way, people across the whole county experience this at least every 3 years versus the same people on Riverland Drive every year.
Okay, can you set up a meeting to do that?
I'm working to get a meeting with you and Ms. Johnson and the new PRC director.
All right. All right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Mr. Sass?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to just thank briefly the administrator and Mr. Smalls, our county ombudsman. I don't know about you guys, but it just seems like there's been an uptick in West Ashley of people not maintaining their homes in really terrible shape and not healthy, overgrown. We have ordinances that prohibit this sort of stuff. And I think in the past we've been a little bit lax in enforcing those ordinances, but I've seen an uptick in more persistence about enforcing these codes that we have on the books. Neighbors have a right to enjoy their property. They don't have a right to look at somebody's mess. And I think Mr. McMillan was telling me he's got a project in your district, Mr. Sassy's been working for 6 years. And that's just ridiculous. And it seems to me the only way to get these people to come into compliance with their properties is by hitting their pocketbook. And so if we've got ordinances on the books, we need to be enforcing them and making people toe the line to keep their properties in good order. But thank you, Mr. Tootin, for pushing on that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Mr. Werman?
Nothing for me tonight. It's been interesting.
Mr. Tootin?
No, sir.
It has been interesting. And I normally don't say much, but Mr. German, when he came up to speak, he said something that resonated with me. And he is correct. 66 years old, I've seen, segregation, I've seen integration, I've seen it all. But he is correct. Most of the time, when construction comes, a highway comes, it always comes through poor minority communities. And we seem to somehow, even on this council, we want to go through the straightest point and the shortest route. A couple of years ago, the people on Riverland Drive and Central Park Road packed this room for months and months, asking us, don't do a roundabout, whatever they called it in their neighborhood. And some of you on this council actually voted to put that right through the community without no passion at all. But I saw passion tonight when it came to something that you like. And, you know, if you like something, you'll feed it. If you don't like something, you'll kill it. And I can feel the frustration on these folks on both sides, Albany as well as the residents on Doe Road. But there should be some type of compromise versus just no, hell no. And so I'm going to challenge this council when these things come up, let's be consistent. Let's not put it through the small minority communities, you know, just like they tried to shove it down Highway 41 until we stepped in the Phillips community. They were willing to shove it right down these people's throat. We're widening the roads. And so it's got to be some type of consistency, because just like I said with these parks, we all should share the brunt in our communities with these Christmas lights. And so a lot of times we don't like things in our community, but then we drive all over the place in other people's community to get to it. I would imagine some of you live in Albany or live out, you go to the Christmas lights to see these Christmas lights. Think of these folks and what they got to put out with on a year-to-year basis too. Even though it's temporary for 2 or 3 months out of the year, but they feel the same way. So when we discuss these things, yeah, we discuss it with passion, but look on the other side and says, what if? Because what affects one affects all of us. And I'm just appalled, you know, sometime on how these things, I saw I-26, I lived it. Came through a small community and divided the whole community and put an interstate between the community where we could have walked across the street to each other's house. And when the interstate was completed, we had to walk all the way around under the overpass just to go play with some of our friends. 526 did the same thing too. Destroyed, you know, African-American communities, settlement communities, destroyed them. And when I hear people say, well, we can put it back together, how could you, after 50 years of people being disenfranchised, half of them or most of them are dead, you put a community back together, they can't enjoy it because they're passed on. And young people know nothing about that. So I'm gonna still be working hard to make sure that the poor and the needy get their fair share, as well as the rich get their fair share, but it's gotta be an equal playing field and a level playing field. You can't vote to put something in one neighborhood and then say, well, I don't wanna do it because it's in my district. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
Just get the trash.